good. I have to celebrate you, baby. I have to praise you like I should.
Ohayou gozaimasu. Guess what? If you're not aware, Pentax have done a thing, and I'm jumping on the hype train because why not? They just released the Pentax 17, which makes this a pretty monumental day for anyone that can't afford a Leica. I hit up the Australian launch party at my local film lab, Hillvale, and I'll share my thoughts. First up, it's rocking a 25mm f3.5 lens, which is based off the Pentax Espio Mini, I believe, just like from 1994. Its lens is the equivalent to a 37mm full frame lens, so it's right in the sweet spot between a 35 and a 40mm lens. So if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that this is going to be probably the perfect camera for me as far as focal length. To be honest, I was pretty surprised by this camera. The lens rendered the colors pretty nicely, and all the images were super sharp on display at the event. Now, this camera is zone focused, and it is a manual camera as far as changing the setting. You've got 6 settings ranging from 3 meters right through to macro, which I believe is maybe like 10 inches. Don't hold me to that. It's got you covered for really any scenario, from landscapes through to macro. It's up to you what you do with it. And banking street photographers are probably going to go nuts for this camera purely because you've got 72 shots per roll now, and the 25mm lens is fairly wide, so you do get quite a bit in your shots. Holding the camera, it felt fairly intuitive, and I enjoyed playing with all the knobs, I guess. But the one thing that really got me about this camera was its viewfinder. It looked incredible. To be honest, that is probably the one thing about this camera that sold me on it. It had dual frame lines, and you could also see what your manual focus setting was on. There was something quite satisfying about that, really. Now, you don't have control over your shutter speed on this camera, but there are a range of different program auto modes that will suffice no matter what you're trying to do. The stock standard program auto mode is probably going to be the best for anyone doing street photography on a sunny day, or, you know, trying to get the best image out of the camera. There is also a bokeh mode, which you can switch over to that if you're looking to get a bit of a blurred background, but be wary, it is only f3.5, so it's not going to be the blurriest background you've ever seen. But hey, it's something. Hello darkness, my old Pentax. It's got a built-in flash as well, and a cable switch port, so night photography, you can do it. From what I read, the highest shutter speed is about 350th of a second, which is pretty good, so you know, you're gonna get pretty sharp images out of that, as long as the camera decides to shoot at the higher shutter speed. It does have bulb mode as well, so you can open that sucker up if you want to do some night photography or use an ND filter and get some cool effects. Go for it. One of the only things I noticed that felt a little bit janky about this camera was the film wind. You could hear the springs and things like that going, but hey, I didn't mind that so much. It kind of reminded me of my Yashica camera, so you know, that's fine. That thing has not broken on me yet, and it's from the 80s. This one's going to use a 40.5mm thread mount, which is actually the same as my Leica camera, so that's going to be handy if I do pick one of these up. And you're not going to have a problem with charging, because this camera uses a lithium-ion CR2 battery, which are readily available at supermarkets, and they last forever. It does have a power on switch, but I would probably just leave that sucker on. Altogether, I feel like this camera is a pretty good entry point for anyone that is looking to get into the game, has maybe done a tiny bit of film photography, or even for professionals. It is a fairly nice camera to hold. It does have a magnesium top and bottom plate, so you do have that added luxury of some metal casing. It does have some maybe faux leather on the back and the front. It was almost somewhere between like a Pentax K1000 and maybe like a Contax, what's the fucking Pocket one? I don't know, I don't give a shit about those. It's definitely going to be a camera to watch out for. Go and test one out if you can, because this is a game changer for film photography. The more people that buy these, the more that companies are going to realize that, hey, we want more film cameras, bring them back. I guess we can't all sit around drinking flaming hot Mountain Dews to try and win over the film industry. I mean, we could, but it's probably not good for the surge systems the world over. I actually have been following this camera for quite a while. Obviously, since the announcement from Ricoh, there have only been breadcrumbs that have been dropped. But last year when I was in Japan, I actually managed to get to the Ricoh Asahi Pentax camera exhibition that was on in Tokyo at Kitamura Camera upstairs in Shinjuku. They had a variety of old cameras there, from K1000s to SP1000s, like this sucker here. These cameras rule. You're never gonna go wrong if you pick one of these old cameras up. They generally always still work, apart from maybe the light meter, because the battery compartment is completely sealed shut, like this one, because someone left the battery in 20 years ago. But that's beside the point. At this gallery opening, they actually had the prototype of the Pentax 17 on display. You could only see the corner of it, but it all makes sense now. It was actually the battery compartment of that camera that you could see. I want one of these prototypes though. That thing was clear. You could see all the internal components like a bloody Game Boy from 19 whatever. It's nice to see exhibitions popping up all over the world though, celebrating photography on film. Definitely check out Hill Vale if you're in Melbourne and you want to get some film developed. Those guys are doing God's work. They've even set up a gallery attached to the Film Lab, which is where the launch party was, and it's an awesome space. Now, this camera isn't super cheap, but it's also not insanely expensive. In Australia, it's sitting around the $850 to the $900 mark. You could spend probably the same amount on what you think is going to be a good camera on eBay, and it might just be absolutely cooked. At least you're gonna know that you've got a camera that isn't just about to die on you at any second, because we all know how that feels and it sucks. In my mind, that price tag isn't too bad because A, you're likely going to be able to get warranty repairs done on this thing, and it's probably gonna last for the next 30 or 40 years, depending how you treat it. Unlike a digital camera of the same price, purely because that thing's going to be so outdated, it's also going to need new batteries, etc, etc. It goes on. You probably just won't even be able to get the photos off it anymore because your software is too far advanced. I'm pretty stoked to see what other companies bring out new film cameras. Hopefully this is just the kick in the butt that they need to get this ball rolling again, because we all know that we're screaming for new cameras, because slowly our camera collections are dying and we can't get them repaired anywhere. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. I'm going to be trying to post more content soon. I've been pretty busy, but yeah. Chuck a comment below if you want to know anything about this camera. I spent a fair bit of time with it and got to play around with most of the settings. So yeah, until next time, thanks for tuning in to Surf the Chaos. I'm TJ. I'll be here.
They saw the